Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. A very warm welcome back to Formula 1 news, and with practice getting underway tomorrow at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, Mercedes of course have a lot to get on top of ahead of the next few races. James Allison over at Mercedes does believe though that the confidence is still very high in the W13, and within 2 to 3 races they may well solve all of their problems. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. Drivers of course as usual turning up for this weekend. Thought this is kind of funny, a very well fitting suit here from Hamilton. Probably, well, maybe leaked he's going to join Ferrari, right? I thought I saw this as well. I thought it was pretty good. But in fairness, it seems like you might have some competition on the kind of the fashion championship between the drivers, because guanyu, I'm pretty sure he said in an interview with Ted Kravitz that, he's pretty keen on his fashion. He's going to give Lewis a go. So usually it's kind of Lewis versus himself in these kind of when the drivers turn up battles. Maybe Zhou will give him a good go this season. First of all, to mention this, because of course this weekend in Jeddah, a lot of high-speed straights. Generally, the teams are going to run a lower downforce model. We can see already from Albert Fabrega that kind of the rear wings of these cars have always already been reduced. You can see that Mercedes have effectively just chopped off the rear wing. I believe, well, not the entirety of it, obviously, but the top of it, as you can see above Petronas, that's now much slimmer. I'm pretty sure Toto even said something to the effect of, like, he's going to take a chainsaw, not necessarily him specifically, but the team is going to take a chainsaw to the Mercedes to give the upgrades for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Generally, a lower downforce model makes sense here. A lot of the teams are probably going to go down this route. Will this help Mercedes? Who knows? Because, of course, there has been some talk about the power units, maybe not matching up to quite what Ferrari are bringing to the party right here, and definitely a few kph short, and maybe that's not just because they kind of had a higher drag model than some of the Ferrari teams. That's certainly something that I think some of the lower squads are considering, the likes of McLaren, Williams and the Aston Martin and the like. They're pretty much running at the rear for pretty much the entire time. At Bahrain, they're thinking, well, the Mercedes power units might not be all it's been the last few years, but we'll see if they can get on top of that as the season does indeed progress. This also from the Red Bull side, of course, they're thinking a similar thing. They set the comparison here between Verstappen and Perez. Seems like Perez has got kind of a lower downforce model on, which you'd imagine a lot of the teams go down a similar route of. Have to talk about this as well though, because with Aston Martin in a difficult spot right now all across the board, no guarantees that Vettel is going to be back in business for this weekend as well. He's still waiting for a negative test, so I believe what Aston Martin are planning to do is wait effectively until tomorrow to provide Seb every opportunity to race. But right now he's not returned the negative test that he needs to travel to Saudi Arabia, so therefore Nico Hülkenberg will be there in Jeddah to of course sub in for Seb if necessary once again. That would be tough. At the same time, the Aston does not seem in a particular position to put up any points on the board anyway, so maybe Seb won't mind too much if he has to miss another race. But who knows, obviously, like, he wants to race, he wants to compete, but if that's not possible, that's unfortunate. That's the thing with these kind of double headers, that there's no guarantee the drivers can even get ready to go in time for the next race again. So missing Vettel 2 weekends in a row would be very unfortunate, but as of right now, it's seeming like the more likely possibility, to be honest. Maybe things will change after this video comes out or tomorrow sometime. Let's talk Ferrari then, because of course they're in much better spirits than I imagine the Aston Martin camp is in right now. Leclerc, Sainz, they're having a good time. Also talked lately about what Sainz is doing with his new contract, getting it signed with the Ferrari guys. Seems like generally he's made very good career decisions in terms of which teams he's joined, especially on kind of the early pace that Ferrari have at the start of the season. Like, it seems like it's almost certain it's going to go through. I believe right after the race there was some discussion that they're very, very close to getting this new contract nailed down. I believe they've kind of agreed to terms, right? And of course Sainz is going to stay there, and of course Ferrari wants him. But it's about putting pen to paper, I think, is kind of the last step. Now, look, the other question mark is Sainz just going to kind of be a wingman for Leclerc this season, or does he want to go one step further? Because he's kind of made it clear, especially in this article over at Autosport. I'll leave a link down below for you guys if you would like to check it out. But he effectively says, look, I've been getting on top of the way the car is driven, was somewhat short of the pace that Charles were putting up the entire weekend. But as he says, it's a deficit I never saw last year. No, I was never 3/10 off. Something new to me, bit of a difficult weekend. Obviously, gets P2 in the end. Kind of lucky with the whole the Red Bull disaster that they had. I need to put my head down, figure out where these tenths are, and as soon as I find them, I can put the car to my liking and know exactly how I need to drive this car. Then I'm sure I can get back to fight for a win. So he had some fighting words to say that, like, he's not just going to sit back and be second fiddle to Leclerc this season. Pretty sure Ferrari said they're not like kind of declaring a number one driver. Like, some teams obviously declare a number one driver. Some teams it's kind of known, like, before the fact what it's going to be. But Ferrari, I'm pretty sure they said, like, we're just going to let the drivers fight and see how things go. And of course, as the season progresses, if there's then, team orders come through for understandable reasons, that might make sense. But it seems Sainz is still confident he can get back to his best and, maybe even challenge Leclerc for some wins. Who knows what happens this season. Generally, last year, he was a more consistent driver, especially towards the ends. But when both of them finished in, like, the top 6, top 8, Leclerc was almost always getting the better of him. Speaking of top 6, that's exactly where Mercedes would have been at the Bahrain Grand Prix if they didn't get very lucky towards the end of the race. Now, they do the race debrief after the fact, and James Allison here explaining pretty much what went down at the race weekends. And generally some more confidence here from the Mercedes camp than I was kind of expecting, or at least least what James Allison seemingly was expecting going into this Grand Prix. He reckons they thought they'd be further off the pace than the kind of 6/10 they were in the qualifying sessions, and that given all the problems they're carrying, he's actually quite satisfied with the improvements they have made so far. He also went on to explain, just before this clip I'm going to share for you guys, he discussed the porpoising issue that pretty much everyone's been talking about, like, you know, again and again and again, and he reckons that actually a lot of the commentators, people that have been discussing this, don't get the full picture of it. It's actually a more complicated issue than people are alluding to, which I thought was kind of interesting as well. But then he goes on to say that actually the idea is for this team, they know what the problems are, they have to sacrifice effectively by raising the ride height of the car to eliminate the porpoising to a degree. Therefore, they lose downforce in the corners, which is where they've been struggling, especially in the faster corners compared to Ferrari and the Red Bulls. So, well, that's obviously where they're looking to make the upgrade so they can run the lower ride height like the Ferrari and the Red Bulls are doing right now without obviously seeing the porpoising issue. That's what they're going to try and get on top of. He believes they can get their head around this in about 2 to 3 races.
The amount of porpoising we saw has been quite extreme. We're starting to get it under control, but at the moment we're getting it under control a little bit by having to throw away the basic performance of our car as a smaller problem in order to get the bigger problem, the uncontrollable bouncing, slightly under our control. In the coming weeks, and of course with massive pressure on us to make sure we deliver this quickly, we will find improvements that get on top of the bouncing while not throwing away the underlying performance of the car in order to do so. We can't obviously wait to deliver those solutions. We're hard at work back here in the factory to find them, make them, get them to the car, and then enjoy the benefits of them, and hopefully start to realize some of the inherent goodness that we have built into this car that should put us back up where we want to be. We're something like 0.6 of a second, maybe more off the pace of the leaders in Bahrain. But we are carrying a lot of problems, and a lot of problems that all have solutions, and all of those solutions are within our compass to deliver. Yes, it is challenging, but actually after winter testing, I'd feared worse. And I think actually the performance improvement we've managed to deliver from winter testing to the first race, while perhaps not visible to the fans and perhaps not reassuring to the fans, is reassuring in-house here within the team. And what we have ahead of us, the way in which we're approaching the problems and the way in which we will bring solutions, also gives me some comfort that we will get back to a competitive car quite swiftly, and that we will be able to pursue the objective we have of championships. It is a big job. It is an ambitious car. Some will argue that perhaps we've bitten off more than we can chew with it, but we are very good chewers in this team, and we intend to put these problems right as quickly as possible, hopefully in the next 2 or 3 races, but in any case, we will put them right and we will get our car back at the front of the grid.
So seemingly some more confidence coming out of the Mercedes camp that we'd seen before the season began. Before the season began in the testing, they were, not very confident at all. They had a lot of work to do. Seems like compared to some of the other teams, not quite as much work as maybe they thought they had. They still believe there's something within this car. As he says, some would say we bit off more than we can chew with this car. But he thinks they're going to get on top of it. 2 to 3 races is quite an optimistic expectation, I would argue, because of course we're going straight into Saudi Arabia right here, then to Australia, then over to Imola, and I believe that's when they're going to target a major upgrade here to whatever the flooring or whatever they're going to try and do to fix these issues. That's what they're going to target. But he seems to be pretty confident they can get on top of things soon. Of course, they got bailed out by Red Bull's misfortune this past weekend, but if the current pace stays as it is, Red Bull will catch up and Ferrari will just eat away a massive lead, to be honest, if the trend continues. But this weekend, of course, could be a very different story. Speaking of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, did want to mention this real quick. A since deleted tweet actually from Philip Orton that said Eduardo Freitas will be the race director this weekend. So we had Nils Wittich last time. We thought they were going to kind of go back and forth on it. Of course, if it is Freitas, and now this has been deleted, so I'm not sure that actually will be the case, or whether Freitas comes in from Australia. But still, it's a bit of a trial by fire, right? Because last year's Saudi Arabian Grand Prix was an absolute mess from start to finish, all across the board. Collisions, red flags, restarts, Verstappen running Hamilton off the track a couple of times. Obviously, the collision that happened towards the end of the race as well, the kind of quote-unquote brake test that went down. A disaster to manage. I wouldn't be surprised, this high-speed street track as it is, there's going to be more more situations this weekend to deal with. So maybe Freitas, like, obviously he's a veteran, right, but it is a bit of a trial by fire, throwing him straight in here, but who knows exactly what they are going to plan to do, or whether this is even the case, to be honest. Wanted to mention this actually as well, so penalty points. The way this works is if a driver gets to 12 points within, I guess, a 12-month period, or within, well, some of these points getting written off, then they get an entire race ban. So, well, most of the drivers have something on the board. Like, Verstappen is probably the most interesting one, because I believe he started to pick up these points at basically Monza, which I believe is like the 14th race of this season. So I think he has to survive until race 14 this year without picking up 5 more penalty points, which is certainly possible. And maybe you could see to a degree in his kind of battle with Charles this past weekend that he wasn't taking things maybe somewhat as aggressive as maybe he has done in previous years, even though he was still certainly aggressive with some of the overtaking attempts. But yeah, I believe that these don't start getting written off of Verstappen for, well, several months. So he has to be very careful, because a race ban, especially given the non-finisher they've just had, would be an absolute disaster for Red Bull and could be very crucial in the championship if it does get to that point. So definitely he's got to be careful. Some other drivers certainly up here as well. And tomorrow we're back in business once again in Saudi Arabia. Practice underway 2 p.m, at least over here in the UK. Very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. I'll see you next time.